People judge you in less than 7 seconds. Before you even open your mouth, they have already decided if you are smart, rich, or trustworthy. And the worst part? Once they decide, you can almost never change their mind. It's unfair, it's brutal, but it's how the human brain works. Today, I'll show you exactly what people look at first and how to hack their judgment instantly. Fact 1. The 7-second scan. Your brain judges safety, status, and attractiveness faster than a blink. 7 seconds is enough for your brain to start labeling a newcomer along rough lines like safety, status, and attractiveness. These judgments arrive before a word is spoken. The engine behind this is thin slicing, the mind's habit of forming quick conclusions from a sliver of information. A few cues, facial features, posture, gait, tone of voice, even micro-expressions, can set the tone for how you're read. That rapid read is not a verdict, but a first draft that others will reference as if it were carved in stone. On dating apps, the first impression begins with a photo. A shot with good lighting, a relaxed smile, and direct gaze signals approachability and potential status. The brain takes the bait and you get swiped. The rest is negotiation. In a job interview, those same seconds decide whether you're a safe bet. A firm handshake, steady eye contact, and an upright posture spur impressions of competence. That initial reading can steer the tone of the questions that follow. Even meeting the in-laws, a confident yet warm greeting can plant the idea that you'll survive family dinners without collapsing into a sweater-wearing disaster. These quick judgments shape the path forward more than you'd admit. Thin slicing has a surprising degree of influence across social outcomes, and yes, it can be spot on in contexts where signals are stable: trust, warmth, competence. The flip side is brutal, and it's the reason the process feels unfair. The halo effect means one striking cue can color the whole assessment, muddying the water between talent and charm, or between nerves and capability. You might be hired for charisma or turned away for a stiff handshake, even if the actual skills lay elsewhere. The quick read is fast, but it's not precise. It's a bias you carry into every first encounter, a cognitive shortcut that can save time or waste it. So you navigate this by shaping those first seconds on your terms. Present signals that align with the impression you want to project: a relaxed posture, an easy but focused gaze, a voice that sits comfortably in the room. In dating apps, choose photos that convey warmth and competence rather than a curated pedestal. In interviews, greet with calm confidence and a clear handshake. In social meetings with the in-laws, mix respect with a touch of humor to soften the edges. The 7-second scan isn't a verdict so much as a doorway, a moment where you set the frame before the rest of the conversation unfolds. Your brain will always be a fast critic, but you can steer the critique with deliberate signals and steady consistency. Fact 2. The halo effect. Why good-looking people get hired, and forgiven, more easily. The halo effect is a lazy brain hack. One pleasant feature, and a crowd of favorable inferences follows. It's fast. In hiring, an attractive candidate can be seen as more competent, even when skills and experience are the same as a less attractive applicant. The bias sticks. That single cue, looks, colors judgments about intelligence, warmth, credibility, and reliability. Thin slicing lets us make quick judgments from a few cues. A confident smile, polished grooming, and an assured posture trigger the halo. In dating apps, a photogenic photo can generate more messages and matches, even when chemistry or values are unclear. People assume competence and sociability from the surface, then treat the rest of the profile as if it confirms those assumptions. We mistake the signal for the source, and the impulse hardens into expectation. The halo stretches into how we behave with the people we meet in real life. In a job interview, first impressions can tilt how interviewers view disclaimers about gaps or mistakes later on. In meetings or presentations, attractive or well-dressed speakers are often rated as more trustworthy or persuasive, independent of the content they deliver. Meeting the in-laws or new neighbors can go smoother if the partner's looks have already bought you some social capital. The forgiveness effect is real, too. Small missteps are shrugged off when the person carrying them looks likable, competent, and appealing. Cognitive machinery aside, the consequences are practical and stubborn. People with a halo tend to receive more attention, more chances, and more favorable evaluations than equally capable peers who don't look as good. This isn't just unfair, it's inefficient. It means objective metrics and actual performance can be swept under the rug by a smile and a good haircut. Recognizing the bias helps, but it also makes you aware of how often you're the one doing the rating. Structured processes, diverse panels, and explicit criteria can tamp down the surprise bias a little. Still, the human brain will gravitate towards simple shortcuts, especially in fast-paced encounters. And that, frankly, is the punchline. Judgment often outpaces reasoning, and the halo rides along for the ride. Fact 3. The shoes and watch trap. Yes, people look at your shoes first. Here is why. Your shoes are the opening act in most social interactions, and the brain notices them long before a greeting lands. Thin slicing is the name for this. We take a sliver of information and spin a whole story from it. We judge competence, reliability, and warmth from footwear in a blink. That blink becomes a narrative you'll be fighting against for the next few minutes, whether you like it or not. In a job interview, a polished, well-maintained pair of shoes nudges perception toward professionalism. A scuffed heel or mismatched socks can tilt the scales the other way, silently signaling sloppiness or a lack of respect for the moment. The shoes don't have words, but they carry the burden of hundreds of micro-decisions your future boss may not even realize they made. People read that you care enough to present yourself, or they infer that you don't care at all. It's not a verdict, just a stereotype in motion, ready to be confirmed or disproven as soon as you speak. Dating apps and meeting the in-laws ride on the same fast lane. Photos often capture shoes before the eyes settle on your smile, and what those shoes say can feel like 90% of your personality in a thumbnail. If you show up in clean, tasteful footwear, the impression tends toward responsible, practical, approachably stylish. If you go overboard with flash or novelty, you signal risk-taking or vanity, which may be charming in the right context and ruinously off-putting in another. Meeting the in-laws adds a twist. They're sizing you up for compatibility with the family's tempo. Do you arrive on time? Do you look like you care enough to show up prepared? The shoes become a quiet verdict on your future at grandma's dining table. So how do you beat the trap without turning every encounter into a costume party? Start with context. Pick footwear that fits the setting, not your latest impulse. Keep shoes clean and well-maintained. Polish if leather, replace worn soles if needed. A versatile, classic pair often outperforms a loud statement piece in most work or family scenarios. Pair the look with a simple, unobtrusive watch or none at all if it clashes with the outfit. Balance signals rather than shouting them. And yes, acknowledge that thin slicing exists. You can't erase first impressions, only steer them. The goal isn't to fake who you are, just to give the part of you that matters most a fair chance to be heard. Fact 4. Posture speaks louder. Slumping makes your brain produce loser chemicals, cortisol. Posture acts as an almost instantaneous signal in the choreography of first impressions. Slumping tells a story you didn't mean to tell. Your brain grabs that cue in a heartbeat and fills in the rest. It's all part of thin slicing, the mind's habit of judging strangers in a glance. There's real psychology behind it, even if the science isn't tidy. Some lab studies show posture can nudge hormonal signals, and slumping is linked with higher perceived threat and lower self-confidence. That combo can coincide with rises in cortisol. The colorful line about loser chemicals is catchy, but the underlying message is calmer and scarier. The body and the mind feed each other in the moment. The reality is messier, with small effects and mixed replication, but the vibe is undeniable. A slouched posture can spiral into internal doubt and external dismissal. In dating apps, your photo posture can kill a match before a message is read. An upright torso signals confidence and warmth. In a job interview, a straight spine reads as competence, while a slump reads as resignation to the role you're about to play. In the living room with the in-laws, posture can decide who gets the eye rolls and who gets asked to pass the potatoes with a smile. Thin slicing loves your posture. Your posture becomes a stand-in for years of practice you never had. Fixes are simple in theory and messy in practice. Stand tall before you step into the room. Roll your shoulders back. Breathe. But don't mistake posture for character. The brain leaps to conclusions and you're there to present substance, not perform a litany of micro-rejections. Use posture to give yourself more time to speak. Tiny adjustments, practiced, can buy you microseconds in the mind's rapid-fire scoring system. Thin slicing isn't fair, but it's fast. Ride the bias, don't be owned by it. Fact 5. The handshake bias. Why a weak handshake destroys your reputation instantly. Your handshake is a tiny performance that says more about you than your LinkedIn headline. In microseconds, someone decides if you look confident, if you care, if you might be trouble. Thin slicing, the brain's lazy superpower, does the heavy lifting here. A limp grip channels insecurity. It's the social equivalent of showing up in slides with a half-undone tie. It conveys a readiness to retreat before the first conversation begins. In dating apps and job interviews alike, this minute ritual can derail the entire encounter before the small talk starts. In a job interview, the handshake sets a baseline. A firm, controlled grip paired with steady eye contact signals readiness and control. A weak clasp invites a slate of unspoken judgments about reliability and willingness to lead. The interviewer isn't just greeting you, they're scanning your ability to show up under pressure. The moment the handshake ends, your performance in the room gets colored by the impression you planted at the doorway. The effect isn't fair, but it's real enough to tilt decisions about who moves forward. Dating apps quicken the tempo. When you finally meet in real life, the opener handshake becomes a microtest of chemistry. A confident, warm grip can mirror a sense of playfulness and interest, even before words are spoken. A pale, limp handshake signals disinterest or anxiety, and the spark often fizzles before it has a chance to crackle. Meet-the-in-law scenarios offer another brutal test. A strong handshake can set a smooth tone for the night. A weak one can plant the seed of doubt about whether you belong at the family dinner. People read you like a quick book cover, and the cover doesn't always match the chapters inside. Thin slicing explains why this matters. The brain leans on fast, automatic judgments to conserve energy. The handshake taps into perceived dominance, warmth, and trustworthiness all at once. We don't always realize we are judging, but the judgments stick. A negative first impression can color subsequent information, no matter how compelling your ideas or your jokes may be. Welcome to the realm where micro behaviors steer macro outcomes, and where your best personality can get overshadowed by a poorly timed squeeze. If you want to ride the bias rather than be crushed by it, practice becomes your armor. Start by calibrating your grip to feel firm but not crushing. Mirror the other person's pressure a touch to signal attunement, not dominance. Maintain eye contact and a friendly smile, and let the handshake last naturally, long enough to say you're present, short enough not to feel forced. Follow the gesture with a grounded posture and a clear, warm verbal greeting. If you're battling sweaty palms, acknowledge the vibe with light humor or simple warmth rather than blaming the weather. And if you're genuinely unable to deliver a conventional handshake due to an injury or disability, lean into verbal warmth and a confident stabilize in your posture. The other cues can still carry the room. Fact 6. Tone of voice. Deep voice equals leader. High voice equals nervous. It's biology, not fairness. People judge you by your voice in the first seconds of hearing you speak. Pitch is a fast signal about status and dominance. Thin slicing refers to pulling useful judgments from tiny cues, usually without realizing it. Deep, resonant tones tend to register as confident and in charge. A higher, trembly voice often flags nervousness, even when the message is solid. It's biology, not fairness. Dating apps love voice notes where tone can do more work than the words. A deep voice can tilt interest towards someone who reads as steady and capable. A squeaky, high-pitched voice can trigger doubt about composure. In job interviews, the tone can set the emotional climate before a single plan is outlined. Meeting the in-laws can hinge on how you regulate your pitch. Deep equals this person can handle chaos. High equals let's keep things light. And everyone reads accordingly, whether you like it or not. Biology is doing the heavy lifting behind the scenes. Lower pitch signals often tie to larger vocal cords and hormone-driven development, which humans pick up as a cue to leadership or dominance. The brain maps those cues almost automatically to impressions of trust, competence, and status. These signals show up across many cultures, though the exact read can shift with context. In other words, your voice carries a built-in shortcut that your audience seizes without a second thought. So what can you do with this knowledge without turning into a sound engineer caricature? If you want to project leadership in important moments, breathe and slow your delivery, letting a steadier, lower tone surface naturally. In a dating context, warmth still matters, but a calm, confident cadence matters more than a perfectly modulated octave. In casual meetings with the in-laws, a controlled, even tempo signals reliability without sounding robotic. Thin slicing will crush you if you forget it's a bias. Still, it's a real bias you can respond to. Your voice is a lightweight badge you wear in seconds, and in a land of quick judgments, that badge can tilt the whole outcome in your favor if you treat it as part of the signal, not the whole message. Fact 7. The primacy effect. Why you can never fix a bad first impression, so don't mess it up. First impressions arrive in a blink, and the primacy effect makes that first bite cling to your tongue long after the meal has turned into leftovers. Your brain treats early information as a blueprint, not a rumor, and it sticks. The result is a bias so stubborn you feel it in your gut when you finally hear more about a person or a job candidate. It's not fairness, it's chemistry in human form, fast and sloppy. Thin slicing is the trick your brain uses to get by with minimal data. You don't need a full dossier to decide whether someone is warm, competent, or someone you'd endure 5 minutes of small talk with. A brisk walk, a steady gaze, a well-timed pause, a confident voice, a sincere smile. These microsignals pile up and become judgments you carry around. In dating apps, that means a photo or a caption can tilt your impression before you even swipe right. In a job interview, the way you shake hands, how you answer a question, and whether you maintain eye contact often outrun the actual content of your resume. In meeting the in-laws, a fleeting sense of ease or frostiness can set the tone for the entire weekend and the awkward family photo that follows. The consequences pile up quickly. Once the first impression lands, it colors how you interpret subsequent interactions. If you looked aloof, people will read later warmth as forced or curious inspection rather than genuine openness. If you project competence, a stumble later might be chalked up to a bad day rather than a flawed skill. And because the halo effect travels with warmth or confidence, you get credit for traits you barely showed and blame for flaws you never actually displayed. The mind becomes a courtroom with a single verdict, and the evidence that comes after is treated as either proof or protest, depending on the initial bias. So what's the weapon against this trap, you ask, while knowing you're probably guilty of a few first impression sins yourself? You don't erase the past. You try to shape the moment you're in and minimize the damage from the start. Dress for the setting in a way that signals both warmth and competence. Stand tall but relaxed, make steady eye contact, and offer a genuine, brief smile that isn't a reflex. Speak clearly and listen with intent, not just to respond. If you're on a dating app, curate a photo set that shows approachable warmth and a hint of reliability, and craft an opener that shows you've noticed something real, not a generic compliment. In a job interview, rehearse a concise story that demonstrates both capability and collaboration, then let the interviewer steer the conversation with curiosity. Meeting the in-laws? Lead with light humor, show interest in their stories, and avoid defensive stances that say you're counting seconds before you're free. Bottom line, the primacy effect isn't a moral failing you can fix with better manners. It's a bias baked into how we process social data. The first slice sets the temperature for everything that follows, and it's stubborn as a stain. You can nudge the odds in your favor by nailing that initial signal, but you can't fully rewrite the verdict once it's been delivered. So yes, don't mess it up. Because in human judgment, the opening act often steals the show, and the rest of the performance has to work harder to outshine it. You are a walking billboard. Make sure the advertisement is good. First impressions arrive in seconds, and you are a walking billboard. A flood of cues comes from how you dress, how you move, and even how you breathe. People use these signals to judge trust, competence, and warmth long before a word is spoken. That speed leaves you little time to adjust the copy on your billboard. Thin slicing is the mind's habit of turning tiny details into sweeping judgments. It feels unfair, and it is, but it's a real rule of social life. Across a dating app, a job interview, or a tense family dinner, those slices add up and steer the night. It's always a sample, never the full picture. Your photo is the headline of your billboard, the image friends will use to decide whether to swipe right. Make it clear, well-lit, and recent. Show your face, not a mysterious silhouette. A direct gaze and a natural smile read as approachable and confident. Second photos should reveal something real about your life, cooking, climbing, or playing a sport, so the image feels authentic. In the bio, drop concrete details instead of grand claims. Specifics make warmth and reliability feel tangible. In interviews, attire signals you respect the setting. A pressed shirt, clean shoes, steady gaze, and a confident voice tell a different story than last-minute panicking outfits. Practice a firm handshake and concise, pointed answers that show you can be relied upon. Meeting the in-laws demands warmth and listening, not loud bravado or cool detachment. Let your questions be curious rather than combative, and let your body language invite theirs. Here's the endgame of the psychology of first impressions. Your brain makes a judgment in a heartbeat. You latch onto that story, and you go about collecting evidence to defend it for hours, days, or even years. The blunt truth is that first impressions ride on thin slices of data, and thin slicing is remarkably good at fooling you into believing you've seen someone's whole personality from a single glance, a single line, or a single smile. Thin slicing is the fancy name for judging a complex person from a sliver of information. You meet someone on a dating app, and a photo plus a few words determines your next move as if the entire plot of their life rides on that one font choice and that clever opener. You're in a job interview, and a confident handshake, steady eye contact, and a warm tone can tilt the scale even if the resume says otherwise. You meet the in-laws, and their verdict hinges on your jokes, your cooking, and whether you can nod along to their favorite hobby without grimacing. It's amazing how accurately we pretend to be random and fair while our brains are running a full speed run of snap judgments. Key points, in case you forgot to blink. First impressions happen fast. We rely on thin slices. Cues like posture, tone, and facial expression steer those judgments, and those cues often mislead more than they reveal. We can influence initial impressions with a bit of warmth that matches competence, but even then, the truth takes a second act to show up. If you recognize yourself in this, you're not alone. You've probably swiped, nodded, or laughed in a way that says, "I've already decided who this person is." And you've probably been surprised later when the person proved you wrong. Share a story in the comments about a time your first impression backfired. Let's roast our own quick judgments together. If this landed, hit that like button, subscribe for more blunt takes on how our minds cheat us, and drop your ideas for future videos in the comments. Next time, we'll tear into how to test your own judgments in real life, how to read signals without overreading them, and how to survive the minefield of first impressions in dating, work, and family gatherings. Until then, your brain will keep judging with the speed of a sniff test. Just try not to treat it as gospel.